Mr. Rob.
Good morning.
Here, this is from the NHS.
Oh, thank you. Who's this? It's about counter fraud? No. Bob Alexander. Bob Alexander. Bob Alexander? Let's see. Is he, please can you do a tribute to Bob Alexander? Is he retiring? Is he moving on? Is he dead? So I first met Bob about 13, 14 years ago. We were both relatively new at the Department of Health. The NHS was in deficit. Richard, don't worry about it, David. Douglas had blamed this on something called near cash, and frankly we needed a better story to tell. So I was dispatched to see Bob Alexander, a near mythical Dickensian kind of character who paraded the fifth floor of the Department of Health, keeping a firm grip on the NHS finances. The 5 minutes I spent with Bob didn't teach me anything about what I might say to the media or to the service, but I left knowing new words I never thought existed before that meeting. It was some years later before we'd worked together again. And when we were creating the Trust Development Authority, we needed somebody who could lead the finance community through what was an even trickier financial backdrop for the NHS. And there was only really one man for the job, and that was Bob Alexander. By this stage, his connection with the service was fantastic, and he'd got near legendary status with finance directors up and down the country. He was a fantastic colleague during those years. He did nothing to solve the financial problem. In fact, that got worse. But I learned from Bob that there's a story you can tell. He created a new health economy in the south of England, Nether Wallop, and in Northern Ireland, Ballywick, and blamed most of the deficit problems on these health economies. It was at least a year and a half before the Trust Board, who was busy trying to work out where these health economies were, realised that we were in such terrible financial straits. I count myself as privileged because I also got to know a little bit about Bob the man as well as Bob the leader. And he was very fond of his family. He would always talk about Charlotte and the kids, or those kids, as he would affectionately call them. And I can remember back in 2014, a colleague of ours, Ralph Kullbeck, myself and Bob were working on creating a partnership with Virginia Mason Hospitals in Seattle, and it was really important as a part of this that we went out to go and see them in action, so that we could get the very best out of the partnership. And we did this, and Bob's generosity of spirit really shone through during that trip. I can remember one evening he treated us to a meal, Ralph and I, at this fantastic seafood restaurant. Now, I'd been with Bob before, and I knew that in drinking terms, my 1/2 pint needed to match his 3 pints. But Ralph wanted to see if he could match Bob drink for drink. I think we just about got to the end of the first course before Ralph jumped up from the table and literally ran for the door. I don't think I'm not sure we've seen Ralph since. Have we seen people see Ralph? Yeah. Good. But it's a trip we'll never forget. What's that? He's not dead. He's just moving on. Oh. Well, in that case, can you try and get that 50 quid off him that he owes me?